An Iraqi young man was looking for a job to earn his daily bread. Just like any other person, after finding a certain job, he somehow witnessed a gruesome incident that took place years ago, as if he saw a part of the past right before his eyes in a way that defies reason and logic. Want to know what he saw? Watch the video till the end. I promise you've never heard this story before. Just drop a like, my dear friend, and let's start today's episode. Before I start, and since it's the new year, I just want to let you know that Lady Decor has launched an Iraqi website. Now you can explore their amazing products, shop with ease, and see every item in the best possible way. Products for every taste, every shape, and every color. All you need to do is visit their website and pick what you like. Choose proper size, select the number of pieces, and add them to your cart. Then simply check out, enter your delivery info, and pay at the door. And guess what? This isn't just for Baghdad, it's all across Iraq. And here's a little gift for you, a 10% discount on your total order. Just enter Z6HD at checkout, activate your code, and you're good to go. All the links you need are in the description. Peace be upon you, I'm Ali Ahmed, bringing you stories from my followers. Got a story you'd like to share? Just tap the Instagram account on your screen. Our first story comes from Badr Al-Ghanem in Kuwait, born in 1996. Badr recalls that after finishing high school, he joined a university in the UK, University of Bath, in the beautiful city of Bath. He said, "The department I attended was in a big building, and later on, another one was constructed beside it. Back then, I studied in the original building, but by God's grace, I finally got the opportunity to study in the department I had always dreamed of. When I started looking for a place to stay, I found myself with a few options. The most practical choices were either shared housing or living with a host family. Shared housing means living with several students in a house or apartment, where expenses are split among everyone. Living with a family, on the other hand, means actually staying with them, paying a reasonable rent, and in return receiving not just a place to live, but also extra services, like meals and laundry. So the family takes care of everything from A to Z. I searched for families open to hosting, and I found one that offered me a spacious room, a clean study room, and a beautiful cozy spot surrounded by green fields on the outskirts of the city. The best part? For a small extra fee, the family even drives me daily to the university, located on the far side of town. The additional amount was something minimal, and I immediately agreed and moved in with this family, and everything was perfect. The family became my friends to the extent that I started using one of their cars to go to university and return comfortably as if I were a member of this family in every sense of the word. After 2 full years of study, I passed the second academic level with excellence, which qualified me to apply and study practically within the university laboratories, where my strange story began. Studying inside the laboratory was practical and involved scientific experiments that required me to stay for long hours inside the lab. One day, I had no choice but to conduct some scientific experiments for an important exam. Time slipped away, and by the time I finished, it was already 9 at night, and I was the only student left in the lab. The lab was on the 3rd floor, and after official university hours, the elevator stopped working, so I had no choice but to descend 3 flights of stairs to finally leave the building. It was frustrating because I had to walk through complete darkness for 3 whole floors just to get down to the lab on the day I was late. The place was eerily silent, and I felt a chill run down my spine as I tried to keep going, just to finish the experiment and escape. But amidst the silence, I started hearing the elevator's noise moving up and down to the last floor continuously. As I said, the elevator was supposed to be stopped, but I thought maybe the guard was patrolling the university. Over the span of half an hour, the elevator didn't stop even once. This was very strange. I opened the lab door to see what was happening and maybe ask the guard too. But the hallway was empty, the lights all off as usual. The elevator stopped at my floor and the door slid open, but it was empty. I whispered a quick prayer for protection, convinced the elevator must be malfunctioning, and went back to continue the experiment. Then, just a few minutes later, something suddenly fell quickly, and within seconds, the entire place shook after something fell to the ground. When I rushed to the corridor to see what had happened, I saw dust coming out from the closed elevator door opening, suggesting that the noises I heard were the result of the elevator falling from the highest floor to the ground. I stood in my place shocked until I realized that there were many distant voices, and it was clear that they were frightened after the elevator fell. The situation then turned into noise and screams coming from the ground floor. Screams and fear gave me the impression that something had happened. Maybe someone was inside the elevator during the fall and got hurt, and people reacted to this situation. I ran quickly down the stairs, hearing the noise getting louder and closer. But after reaching the ground floor, the noise and voices of people completely disappeared, as if they were never there, or as if I was imagining them. The place was calm and impeccably clean. The elevator stood there, looking perfectly normal, except for the out of service sign. What really frightened me was that I had experienced it all firsthand. I knew I hadn't imagined a thing. I wasn't tired. I wasn't sleepy, yet I tried to convince myself it was just study pressure. I returned to the lab, completed the experiment, logged the results, and switched off the lights. Everything was done. I was about to head home. Just one floor down, I caught the sound of a woman and a small girl speaking. Their words came through clearly in English, unmistakably with a British accent. It seemed the older woman was chastising the child, telling her to refrain from playing with certain things and warning her to avoid such mischief. I stood frozen in my place, listening as the argument grew louder. I eventually climbed up to the third floor, trying to locate the source of the noise, which seemed to come either from the third or fourth floor. When I reached the third floor, the same one I had just been on minutes earlier, I saw a woman in her 30s standing by the elevator doors, with a girl of around 10 beside her. The little girl was trying to press the elevator button, while the woman seemed intent on stopping her. I walked over and said hello. The woman quickly apologized. "We're just heading out, but the elevator's delayed," she said. It was as if she thought I was the building's security guard. I explained that after work hours, the elevator shuts down, likely to save energy, so they'd need to use the stairs. But just as I finished speaking, the elevator door opened. I was surprised. I thought, well, since it's working, I might as well go up with them. I stepped inside with the woman and the little girl. She introduced herself. "My name is so-and-so, and this is my little daughter." I told her, "I'm Badr. I'm just a student here, but I've been here all night and haven't heard a sound. I didn't even realize anyone else was around, especially you, since you were on the third floor, the very floor I've been on all along." The mother looked puzzled and smiled without saying a word. Now, listen to what happened. The elevator had descended just a tiny bit before it suddenly stopped, which is usually normal. It can happen anytime, anywhere, especially if the elevator is old. But then something went wrong. The elevator started jerking up and down repeatedly until it finally came to a complete halt. The little girl started pressing the buttons randomly. Her mother grabbed her hand, yanked her back, and scolded her for causing trouble. But I swear the elevator responded to one of her commands and began ascending to the very top floor of the building, and that's when the disaster began. The elevator shot to the top, crashing into the ceiling of the cabin. The roar of its motors was loud and relentless. It was as if the engines were trying to pull the elevator even though it had already reached its limit. I prayed. My heart was pounding with fear and anxiety when I started hearing a strange, faint sound signaling that something was terribly wrong. The sound was that of the elevator cables, responsible for its smooth ascent and descent. But the tension in the wires was unmistakable, stretched and stressed by the ceaseless tug of the motors hauling the elevator upward. The elevator stood frozen in place, held by some mechanism, while the motor struggled to pull the cables, even though it wasn't going anywhere. Just for a few seconds, then the elevator cables snapped. The sound echoed exactly like the first time I heard it in the eerie silence of the lab. As I realized what it was, what I'd heard the first time was the elevator cables breaking, and now it was a full-blown disaster because this time I was inside the elevator and the cables were actually snapping. The cables had all broken, snapping with a loud crack, and the elevator hurtled down from the top floor at full speed. I was inside, thinking the elevator could crash to the floor at any moment. I quickly lay down on the ground and placed my hands behind my neck. Something I had once read online that might save me. The mother and the girl could only stare in horror, their screams echoing under the falling elevator. Beneath the floor, there was a small room. In some elevators, they installed extendable supports, or some sort of mechanism resembling shock absorbers or springs or whatever you want to call them, whose sole purpose was to soften the impact you feel. Most elevators also had a backup system, a safety mechanism that reduced the force of the elevator hitting the ground, lessening the disaster, but never fully preventing it. The problem was that the elevator I was in was old, and instead of proper support beams, they had stacked a bunch of tires, literally tires, arranged in a way that was supposed to act as a buffer. They were meant to absorb shocks in case a disaster struck. All I remember is the moment the elevator hit the ground. After that, everything went black. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital, my body mostly broken, bandaged from head to toe. I realized I had been unconscious for days. My older brother was there, my mother too, along with some university officials. Thank God for my safety. I don't even know what else to say. What is destined will happen, and what happens is by God's will. Once I finally settled down, a security guard came over and asked me about what had occurred. Without revealing a single detail, I recounted everything from beginning to end, and then came the shocking revelation that nobody could explain. The security guard was actually a high-ranking officer, and the situation was far more serious than I ever expected. The officer told me the elevator hadn't moved a bit, nor made a sound. Every camera was recording, yet what the footage showed was me darting to the ground floor, then returning to the lab. My behavior strange, as if I'd glimpsed something or heard something unsettling. Much like the first time, I looked left and right, searching for signs of what had happened, or maybe expecting a catastrophe. I lingered there for over a minute, caught in silent questioning. I went back up the stairs. After finishing my search and experiment, I went down to the second floor and paused for a few seconds. Then, almost without thinking, I climbed to the third floor and stopped by the elevator doors. I was literally talking to myself when, suddenly, the elevator doors slid open, and I actually stepped inside. The strange part? The elevator wasn't even running. Its motor had been completely shut down at that very moment. How the elevator went up, how the door opened, nobody knows. So far, everything seemed fine. Nothing unusual. Sure, it was a little strange, but still just simple, ordinary things. But the part no one could explain, the truly strange part, is what you're about to hear. The guard checked the cameras when he entered and saw the lab was empty. When he rewound the footage to figure out exactly where I had gone, since he hadn't seen me leave the university, he noticed something strange. The elevator doors had opened. That detail baffled him because he was the one who had disabled the elevator himself. He had even shut down the motors, so he couldn't understand how the doors had opened or where I had disappeared to. He turned on the cameras on every floor, but there wasn't a trace of me anywhere, so he brought the elevator back to the ground floor. He also restarted the engines, and the moment the door slid open, he saw me lying there, unconscious, in a strange and unsettling state. There were no wounds on my body, yet I looked broken, as if my arm was twisted one way and my leg bent in the opposite direction. So he called the police and ambulance, and I was rushed to the hospital. What happened next? Well, you know the rest. The hospital reports claimed it was as if I had fallen from a great height. Exactly the kind of injuries you'd expect if someone had dropped down an elevator shaft. But the elevator records tell a different story. It had been completely out of service, stuck on the ground floor, and never moved an inch. And the real mystery lies in the security footage. Despite all the evidence, nothing made sense. What exactly happened, and how could it even be possible? No one had the faintest clue. After a long journey of treatment, I thankfully regained my health. Unfortunately, I had to quit my studies then. 2 years later, still without any real understanding of what had happened, I returned to the UK and continued my studies. To this day, I've never received a single explanation for what I went through. Some people might think there had been an accident in that elevator long ago and the place had become haunted, but I asked around and no one recalled anything. No one remembered any incident there, not since the university was first built until that very day. So who were that mother and daughter, and why did it happen? Honestly, I have no explanation. I'll be waiting to read yours in the comments. The second tale comes from Mahmood in Baghdad. When I graduated, I did what every graduate does. I searched endlessly for a job. Weeks turned into months, until one day in early 2022, it hit me. No company was going to hire me. That realization changed everything. I gave up on the idea of a regular job and set out on what would become a long, uncertain quest to find my true path. He worked as a porter in Al-Bab al-Sharqi area. He also worked in a restaurant as a delivery driver and any available job. Unfortunately, no employer was willing to pay him a decent amount for the hard work he was doing. One day, by pure chance, I ran into an old friend of mine, someone I had studied with back in high school before life took us in different directions. We met while I was working at a small restaurant in Baghdad. He asked me how I was doing and what kind of work I had, so I told him about the struggles I was going through. Then he said, "Why spend all day from morning till night just to earn a small amount? Why not take a job that actually pays you a decent salary?" I replied, "And where would I find such a job? If it were that easy, I'd already be doing it." He smiled and said, "What if I could get you a job that pays no less than $2,500? To put things into perspective, $1,500 in Iraq is nothing short of mind-blowing. Most people earn between $400 and $500 a month. That's if they even make it to $400. So $1,500? That's a massive deal here." He goes on and says, "I told him, no way. Where on earth would you find a job like that? What kind of work is it anyway?" My friend replied, "It's respectable work." Well, maybe not so respectable, but the pay is very respectable. And you're young, you need the money. So I said, "All right then." He told me, "The job is simple. You just stand guard. Nothing more than a personal watchman. But to be precise, it's a night shift from midnight until 6 in the morning." I asked him, "So you mean $1,500 for just 6 hours of guarding?" He said, "Exactly. And the condition is simple enough. I had to sign up for a gym membership and also take up boxing. The requirement struck me as unusual. When I asked why, he explained, "Because you have to be able to defend the place, either with your own hands or with a weapon. At the end of the day, you're a night guard and you're expected to do the job to the fullest. That means keeping your body in shape, strong and athletic." I told him it was fine, that I'd take the job. After all, the condition wasn't impossible. My body was already athletic and I had been training in boxing even during work days, so it sounded simple enough. The real problem though was the place itself. The job, a night guard at one of the casinos. God forbid. And to make things worse, it wasn't just a casino. It was a nightclub, a den of vice, where every kind of forbidden deal and immoral act thrived in the dark. I wasn't sure at first, but the paycheck was tempting, way too tempting. And me? I was dead broke. Back home, we've got a nickname for guys like that. We call them gardens. Sounds odd, but the idea is simple. Both are empty, nothing inside, nothing to show. You know what I mean? In the end, after long hours of hesitation, I chose to accept the job. My friend collected my ID along with my residency card and placed before me a paper to sign. It was a vow of silence. Never to reveal my work, never to mention the place, not to a single soul, no matter what happens, even if I walked away one day. So I signed. The second day, the mission really started. I was given a registered weapon and a peculiar ID that could open doors anywhere. When the clock struck midnight, I arrived at my post, an eerily old house in one of Baghdad's districts. The whole quarter was like a ghost town, its houses falling apart, locked up, and forgotten. My workplace was tucked away in an old house, reached only through a long, narrow alley lined with deserted, decaying homes. I left the main street behind and stepped into that alley, walking until I finally arrived. From the outside, it was nothing but wreckage. A house on the verge of collapse. Yet crossing the threshold was like stepping into another world. It was a mansion stretching upward and downward. Modern, lavish, extravagant. Inside, dozens of people. Some gambling, some wasted, others doing things I couldn't even name. A world of sin, of people with no belief in God. And yet, within those walls, the sight chilled me to the bone. I muttered to myself, may God guide them. This is not my burden, then stepped back to my station, guarding the house's grand entrance. Inside, there were about 5 guards, maybe more, but outside it was just me sitting alone, so I wouldn't draw attention. I sat down on a plastic chair and got to work, my mind racing with one question: would my money be cursed or blessed? After all, I was sweating and working hard, but in the wrong place, for the wrong cause. Nothing more, nothing less. He stayed silent, lost in thought. Exactly 3 hours slipped away. Then it hit me, a sudden, fleeting trace of sulfur in the air. I froze. The smell was far too distinct to ignore. Moments later, a harsher scent followed. The acrid stench of hair burning. Disgusting, yes, but unmistakable. I had smelled it enough times to recognize it instantly. Just then, my eyes caught a sudden flash inside one of the abandoned houses along the alley. A restless flame dancing near a window. Moments later, muffled cries reached my ears, faint but undeniable, coming from the same place. I tightened my grip on my weapon, advancing step by step, every nerve on edge. And there she was, a woman, screaming desperately behind the glass, fire consuming her. Inside that decaying house, someone was being devoured by the flames. It was the kind of nightmare no mind could ever prepare for. I rushed inside and shouted for one of the guards, urging him to call the police immediately. Something terrible had happened in that house. But when he stepped out, his face hardened. Are you insane? Call the police? Do you want to ruin us all? I tried to tell him what I'd seen, but he cut me off coldly. You saw nothing. Sit down. Stay out of it. The screams had fallen silent and the fire had died down almost to nothing, which could only mean the woman was already dead or dying. I begged the guard several times to call the police. After all, my phone had already been surrendered at the checkpoint. He wouldn't budge. All he said was, "Stay where you are." So I sat there, rattled and restless, while the minutes crawled by under a crushing silence outside. And yet, somehow, that first day ended quietly. I passed the house, looked through the window, black stains on the floor, garbage everywhere, but no woman. No trace of the one I saw burning only hours before. I went home. The next day, life went on, but at 3 a.m. the smell hit me. Sulfur, then scorched hair, then fire. The same scream, the same woman, burning again, framed by the window. Her face? I never saw it. Her features? Clear enough from a distance to haunt me. I rushed to the same guard and shouted, "Come, see for yourself. There's a woman who looks like she's on fire. She might need help, man." The guard grabbed me by the arm and muttered, "Brother, mind your own business. Don't stick your nose anywhere else." I insisted, "But in that house, 2 crimes in just one night." He sighed. "I'll explain everything. Just sit down and let the day pass in peace." So I did. I sat back, swallowed my questions, and finished my shift in silence. In the morning, I spoke to the guard and asked, "Tell me, what really happened inside that house?" He replied, "My friend, that old house you saw, back in 2020, people witnessed a woman engulfed in flames inside it. But before that, it was just an ordinary home. A poor family lived there. A mother, her son, and her daughter. The mother was around 60, the son about 25, and the daughter 30. They weren't Iraqis, but from another nationality. The boy had been drinking so much that he was practically out of control. He stumbled home late, as always, hurling curses and shouting obscenities so loud that even strangers on the street shook their heads at his behavior. No one knows why, but that night was different. His sister tried to defend herself with a knife, while their mother demanded he leave the house. In a fit of rage, the boy lost all reason. He seized a knife, killed his sister, and then drenched his mother with gasoline, warning her to stay silent or face the same fate. At that very moment, the mother was retreating while the boy poured gasoline on her. Outside, people crowded together, watching the terrifying scene through the window. The nightmare grew worse. There was a stove nearby, its fire already crackling. Step by step, as she moved back to protect herself, she came too close. Flames leapt onto her body, wrapping her from head to foot. Her cries echoed as the fire consumed her. Everyone saw it happen. We were witnesses. The guard, the other keepers, none of us could have imagined it. The boy lashed out, beating people to drive them off, then ended his life with his own hand. A sight so unreal, not even the wildest film could capture it. From that day on, the house stayed haunted, trapped in the same state since the family's burial. Nothing has moved. No one dares to clean. No one has crossed that threshold from then until today. Any guard who takes your place ends up seeing the same horrors you did. Give it a few days, you'll adapt. We all did. Mahmood recalls, "Those words shook me. I came back to my senses and realized wealth isn't everything. That job could have swallowed me whole, turned my life into hell. Maybe it was God's way of warning me. I quit, and now I earn an honest living in a grocery shop. My paycheck is small, but my soul is at peace. That's worth more than all the tainted money in the world." And that was the end of Mahmood's story. At the very end, he confessed that Mahmood was only a pseudonym, since the story must never be told anywhere. He even deleted the account he used to send it to me, just to protect himself. What exactly he was protecting himself from, I still don't know, but that's how it went. He shared the story and then vanished. Remember, my friend, life isn't all about money, but if you happen to have some extra cash and don't know what to do with it, you could always send it my way. After all, the final account comes one day. If you'd rather not, no worries. You can hop into the channel, subscribe, catch up on past episodes, hit that like button, turn on the notification bell, and share the video so you don't miss what's coming next. And follow me on Instagram to see my life beyond YouTube. I am Ahmed. Goodbye. And when it happened, So many voices distracted me. Any sound around me makes the whole story disappear from my mind. Even though I've recounted the story twice, this is the third time I'm filming it. God knows best. Third or fourth time. Third. This video was recorded and edited, then completed and got deleted. I recorded and finished it again. An error appeared in the recording, encoding error and other such matters. So now this is the third time recording it. I'm fed up, honestly. I'm tired of the video just so you can see my style. No idea how. Anyway, I hope the story is good. Write your opinion below. Normally, you can appreciate. Really, I'm trying my best. I kept it in my memory for the story, and after filming, it became 14 minutes.